I don't know if this is going to be a popular opinion, but were y'all getting Gravity Falls vibes?
Yes.
Maybe a lot less lighthearted, but
Well,
yeah.
and let me explain. You have the two brothers, one who's missing. You have all this cult stuff surrounding them, all these mysteries, the Lovecraftian stuff. I don't know. It was just there was a point where I was like, I don't know. I just got this weird Gravity Falls vibe, and I wrote a note and I laughed. So
Right.
Dipper and Mabel go on this crazy adventure based off of knowledge from a book.
So yeah, this is PulpMythos. I'm Brian, joined by Spencer and Larry.
Whoop whoop.
So,
And yeah, we're going to be reviewing Lovecraft Country for the next 10 weeks. So we're really, really excited about that. I very much enjoyed this episode.
It's going to be a really long review.
It might be a very long review, actually.
10 weeks.
If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 100 subs before September 1st. We're very close. We're at 95. We're going to be reviewing The Boys when it starts. We have the Kurt Russell-a-thon still running. Escape from New York and LA reviews will be up this week. And we've already been discussing content for October, November, December. So a lot of content coming to the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. But yeah, we're going to jump right into I say that every damn time. I don't want to say we're going to jump right into it because I always say it's the Philip DeFranco.
I'll say relax, Philip DeFranco.
I know every single time. I actually cut it out of the last. I did it in the last video, and I chopped it out. I'm not chopping it out this time, but yeah, Lovecraft Country. The first 5 minutes, Larry. What went through your mind?
Oh yeah. Well, I figured it was a setup or a dream or something, or maybe he was reading a book and we're seeing that, so. Because I kind of had the premise of the show from the trailer, so I didn't think that was going to be it.
yeah.
If that's what you were wondering.
No. I thought it was really cool to setting the tone.
Yeah.
Because it gave us a glimpse into Atticus's mind, and he's the central protagonist. He appears to be the main character, and sort of seeing a mash of real life experiences. He was in Korea, he's in the military, and then all the fiction that he surrounds himself with. And I thought it was a cool little sequence to establish the character. Spencer.
I was unsure as to when it was going to be set as far as time frame wise. From the previews, I thought, 40s, 50s ish somewhere. But then from the opening sequence, that looked like World War I stuff. So then I was real confused as to the time frame, and then as soon as it switched from black and white to color, then it cued me in that it was, not real. Because when it first started, I was like, "Are they watching a movie? Is it a dream?" And then I saw the guy's face, and I knew he was the main character. And then I was confused for a moment. But then when it switched to color, and then the spaceships, and then Cthulhu and Jackie Robinson, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit.
The John Carter character.
Yes, yeah. This series the showrunner is actually Misha Green, and she wrote this episode, and I believe she wrote or co-wrote the entire season, so she is the showrunner. Jordan Peele is also one of the creators and producers, and J.J. Abrams is a producer. I think she did a great job with this first script. Like I said, she's writing the show, so very much excited.
She doesn't listen to JJ and go on some Lost.
I don't think he's writing any of it. Yeah. So Atticus Freeman is the lead character. Like I said, set in the 1950s. He just got back from Korea. We get a lot of information about the character spread throughout the episode, but the thing I love about him is the show goes out of its way to say that this is a guy that was a nerdy kid. I guess was picked on to a degree, but now he's this grown, he's great shape. He's a badass. He's a military guy, but he still has that little nerdiness about him. How'd y'all feel about his character, since he's the one we'll be, with for the duration of the show?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, and that explains, how he'd have the sort of combat proficiency to survive, I imagine, the next 10 episodes, but also has seemingly a extensive sci-fi and fantasy knowledge about some of these creatures, like he showed towards the end of this episode. So I thought it was a great setup for your main character to, explain sort of a combined skill set that he would need to have to be the main character of this story.
Yeah, I'm not sure which character creator they put him in to give him,
Oh, they buff strength, apparently.
strength pads, knowledge. But to me, like, I'm not in that good a shape, but it hit closer to home because I was, I played sports and stuff, but I still played D&D on the weekends, and like to me, it gave me like some reminiscent things when I was a little bit younger and still playing rugby on Saturdays and then turn around playing D&D on Sundays. But it was kind of cool to see it in a different light, that he wasn't popular. The girl wasn't popular either. She was, the only member of this sci-fi club. But as they become adults, they've, didn't lose themselves, but they also became more comfortable with who they are as well, which was kind of really cool to see.
I was really impressed with all the nerd references. I'll say nerd, but we'll just say old pulp novels. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
And I like how, it really, this is something me and Larry, you and I have talked about this so many times. There's a lot of old writers that we enjoy, a lot of old stories we enjoy, but we're well aware that those authors were very racist, and it's just a fact. H.P. Lovecraft was a racist. And it is uncomfortable, but Atticus sort of says it at the very beginning when he's talking about John Carter, about that relationship of he still enjoys the stories even though he does understand the problematic issues with them. I just liked how the show addressed that.
Well, because I think he felt like it was an escape. He didn't look at it that way. He looked at it from the character point of view. Is he didn't care about the writer, he cared about the character. To me, if a person's a piece of shit, then a person's a piece of shit, but it makes it harder for me to enjoy what they're doing. But he was able to do that, regardless of how awful those people were. He just saw the books as they are characters. They're not an embodiment of the person writing them.
And also, given that he's, in the 50s and everything, it's either you read the works of someone that maybe you find a little bit offensive or very offensive, who's outright hostile to you as a person, or, half the time you don't read. Yeah. There's a lot of works that you'd have to stop reading if you stopped reading during that period of time because, oh, this guy got racist. Okay, now I just don't get this information. Now I don't finish this story. It's unfortunately that was the state of the time period.
Yeah. I mean, Edgar Rice Burroughs, H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard. All those guys had issues, and but yet we still enjoy a lot of their stories. And I there's a moment towards the end, we'll get to that in a minute, but I love when they rattled off all those classic stories like Reanimator, and there's a lot of references in this show. And if you're familiar with those works, it's just sort of a cool little nod, like, oh, I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So George Freeman is Atticus Freeman's uncle, and he runs a business in which
Uncle Stan.
he travels around the country, specifically the South, and he writes guides for African Americans, basically saying this is where you can go and this is where it's not a good idea to go. And so he's basically the tour guide. There's a fantasy element to this show. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, where he's the guy, they're following maps, they're on this journey, he's searching for his lost father, there's a quest, and you're going into these areas where you're hated by the locals, and they're literally trying to kill you. And I don't know, were you guys picking up on a fantasy vibe as far as the writing structure, or how did you feel about that?
I
It felt,
wasn't, but I am now.
well, yeah, it felt like what is it? Resident Evil 4, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you're in that village and there's clearly something wrong with everybody. But
Yeah, I didn't look at it that way, but now that you say it, all of those aspects make sense. And you said at the beginning, the Gravity Falls vibe, that's all. It wasn't as lighthearted as Gravity Falls, but Gravity
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Falls and Fresh. There's a lot of shows that have more serious episodes and more serious content, obviously. And this was not really funny at hardly any points, but it's the nature of the show is a lot more serious. But it did have that kind of vibe where, like you said, it's this NPC leading these other two characters around on their adventure, and I thought that was kind of cool.
and not only that, but there's during that section where they're going over that, there's a setup of another sort of mystery because his uncle gets really nervous when he mentions his mother.
Yes. There are multiple mysteries. Actually, let's hash them out real quick before we move on with the other characters. There's a thing about his mother. Obviously, his father is missing, and he has this strange letter that he gave him. There's these weird Lovecraftian connections. There's the phone call to South Korea.
I was
What is that?
very curious about that. Yeah.
What is that about? We know he was there, or he was in Korea, but they don't tell us anything about that. Obviously, the silver car. What the hell
Oh yeah.
was that about? We'll talk about that in a minute in more detail. But there's multiple tiny little mysteries planted throughout the entire episode. Definitely.
That was my car. Me and Jordan are friends. He called me and asked if he could borrow it for his show. And I told him it was okay.
I was curious whether the woman who stepped out of the car, whether she was also the voice on the phone earlier.
No. No, I looked it up.
Oh, so that was you. That was you also,
called, or when he called South? Are you talking about the South Korea call?
Yeah.
No, it's Jamie Chung, the girl from like Sucker Punch and those things. It's her character. The person he called is her. So I think it's somebody just based on. She's going to be a character because it says credit only, and then it shows that she'll be in it later episodes. But I think that she is somebody who he either fell in love with or met or was with while he was in Korea.
Somebody doing their IMDb homework.
Dude, I'm telling you, while I'm watching it, I'm like, I got it pulled up half the time. I try not to go into forward episodes because I don't want to know if somebody dies, but
there's a musical number not quite before halfway into the episode. There's a block party and a nice little musical number. Really well shot. The lighting was cool. I like when Atticus did the water and it was spraying and everything. And we're introduced to another character. They call her Letty or Letitia. Very interesting character. There's a lot to her they're not telling us because she has a beef with her siblings. She's been gone a long time. We don't really know what she was up to. She didn't attend her mother's funeral.
Well, even the other jazz singer or whatever had
Ruby.
She had a lot of animosity towards her as well.
Yes, that was her sister.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't just one or two of them. There's several people who were not friendly towards each other.
But we don't know. We haven't had that moment where she sits down and is like, this is what I was doing, or this is, what was going on, or why I'm short money, why I didn't attend the funeral. I'm assuming through the course of the season, we'll get that story. We'll get that information.
It seems like there's a pretty long history there because, no one stays that mad at their siblings over, just that one thing. Well, they'd be pissed, but it seems like there's a history.
Well, no, go ahead.
I'm just saying the minute that, our other two main characters leave the room, her and her brother instantly start arguing seemingly about a number of things. Yeah. And it's brutal. And he doesn't want her there for more than a day. Her sister doesn't want her staying with her for more than 2 days. And she says she's not bitter about the funeral incident, and it's not just about that, but she's awfully mad about something.
Well, when they were arguing, I always keep subtitles up because if somebody's whispering or somebody doing something, I don't want to miss it. So I keep them up all the time. But the brother said something to her, and she, about how could you miss, mama's funeral or whatever. And she was like, you didn't have to grow up with her.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that is alluding to either mom abusing her or if, maybe she met somebody after the other two left. I don't know what that story is. I'm sure they'll tell us. I'm sure that'll come to light here shortly. But it was interesting to see what kind of story is going to shape from that too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So they decide, based on that letter, they're going to go hunting for Atticus Freeman's father.
They're going to go to Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, basically.
We were all thinking it.
So they get in the car and then they head out. And one of the first stops is a diner. And they drive into this very small town and, nothing crazy about it initially. They get into the town, they go into the diner, have a seat, and all hell breaks loose. Basically, I mean, this fucking town, they if you're not white, I guess they just kill you. I mean, that's exactly what happens. They essentially send the fire truck. They send a armed armada to attack them. They jump in the car. They take off, and you end up with this wild, really cool shot chase sequence. That's guns firing, really crazy shit. And it reminded me of the massacre, which was highlighted. And I always forget the name, Larry, from Watchmen highlighted it.
Oh, so you're gonna put me on the spot.
God damn, you don't remember?
Yeah, the Tulsa massacre. Yes.
So that kind of shit did happen. Like, this is, yes, this is a fictional show, but no, this kind of shit did happen, and so this sequence was showing how dangerous and how fucked up it could be traveling through certain parts of the country in that period.
I thought it was interesting when the Atticus was talking about when he noticed the walls being white, and then this was prior to Letty coming back, because she overhears the short order cook being like, "What do you want me to do? They're in here."
Real quick before you go into that, I love the way that was all shot. It was shot like a horror movie. There was this sense of paranoia and this horror coming over the viewer of, oh my god, where are they? They're in danger. They need to get out.
Yeah, and scenarios like this, that's where most of the tension came from in this episode. There were actual monsters towards the end, and it was nowhere near as tense as the earlier scenes where we had stuff like this happening, where they were getting glares or when they stopped at that gas station.
The scene when the gas station, or when they enter that town, and the camera focuses on the guys at the fire station, and they're just sort of looking, and Atticus is looking, and Atticus could tell, like, this is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, and then when they go in and you ask the questions about the White House and the War of 1812, I thought it was cool that they put some history into it. But then he was realizing that all the walls were painted white, and he kicks that one tile over, and it's completely burnt. So I don't necessarily know what they were implying, if that was either they did something awful to the previous African American tenants that came in there that tried to, get something to eat.
Well,
it was maybe someone of an African American heritage owned it, and maybe they took it over. Like, I don't know exactly what they were implying or what happened, but
that's what I thought was implied, because it was called or maybe it happened because she was so nice to his uncle and any other people of color that came through this establishment, because it was previously called Linda, Linda's, and they had a different sign up when they arrived, and it was someone else's restaurant. So it's possible, due to that, this town being the way it is, they burned down her establishment, and now there's this new guy running it.
This 12-year-old kid.
About to say
Well,
the
I was gonna
scaredest.
say maybe not him. Maybe he
Yeah.
just works there, but or maybe he does own it now. But yeah, one of those things was implied. Yeah.
The sequence ends with a silver car, which is described earlier, that Atticus's father was seen getting inside of a silver car. So the silver car comes out of nowhere. It cuts off the vehicle with all the armed men, shooting, and it causes them to flip. But if you really pay attention to the shot, it never physically comes into contact with the silver car. It literally hits a barrier, if you will, and flips over it.
I was about to bring that up. It looks like they never touch, and it seems like, well, the showrunners that you just mentioned, they tend to be pretty, on point with these things. So, I imagine that it was intentional that we saw that it never actually touched that car. So, I'm very curious what all that was about.
Especially,
they didn't have to show us. Yeah.
I was gonna say it was like WWE. It was a big phantom punch. They just fucked up in editing, and it was
I'm not spending any money. We're keeping that shot.
But I thought what was funny too is that they described it as, it looked like a white Ford. That was a fucking Rolls Royce. I don't know how much knowledge of cars people had back then, but I'm like 95% sure that was that a Rolls Royce and a regular Ford probably didn't look the same. But I'm not up to knowledge on my 50s vehicles.
The vehicle stops, and then a woman gets out, and she just sort of stares, and that's it. That's the end of that scene. So you're already building up a mystery. Okay, how did that car know to be there when it was? What happened with this invisible barrier? So we're already introducing elements of potential magic or just weird shit into the overall story. So then, like we talked about earlier, they get to Letty's brother, and they have a big falling out, and we get another piece of information that Atticus, him and his father didn't get along. He was abused. When he joined the military, his father never wrote him, although we do know he did care because he was always hounding George for information about him. They have a weird relationship. Obviously we're going to get more of that, I'm sure, as the season goes on, but it establishes this division between the father and the son.
I think that the uncle was trying to, his best wishes. In his heart, he's like, he cared about you, but that's not all. People who are shitty like that, abuse their kids, abandon them. It's about control. So him having to have knowledge about what he's doing, where he's at, those kind of things. I don't know necessarily that he cared, or if it was about he was losing control because he joined the military and left, and now he doesn't know shit about his kid. So to me, that was more the vibe I got, but I don't know if he's like trying to protect his kid. I don't know what the whole mom sequence is. I don't know enough about the other parts of the story yet to say one way or the other, but
I'd say so far from what we've seen, it may have been a little bit of both. It was about, being controlling in order to protect his kid, because the talk that he had with his uncle mentions that his father was smaller and weaker, and and he had things worse than he did, and he wasn't able to protect him as much. So it was a very misguided way of trying to protect his son, and maybe to some degree toughen him up in a way.
Or also the trauma of family trauma that's carried from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
I'm abused. I carry it to my child. Touching on those elements.
And isn't even aware that it's abuse because it's how he was raised. Yeah, so Yeah, I believe it's both.
Yeah, and it's just the first episode, and we have not yet met the father, although he will be played by Michael K. Williams. Omar, hell
Oh,
yeah!
I didn't even know whether the father was going to show up or not. Is
Oh
that
yeah,
okay?
yes,
Do you
yes he
do you
is.
want to know what Omar happens to Omar in The Wire, Larry?
I
Yes,
will.
Larry.
When I have time, I will watch The Wire.
Of the three of us, Larry has not seen The Wire. We've been begging him. Well, did you watch Sopranos? I can't remember.
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't. Okay, Wires.
I did.
I love them both, but I prefer The Wire. Watch The Wire. Omar's amazing. I love Omar. So he will be coming into the show. I don't. I'm assuming next week. I don't know for sure, but I do know he's in the show. So they end up getting back on the road, and they end up in a town or a county, Devon County, and they pull out. They're looking for a place, based on the information they have, and they end up in the woods, and then we're introduced to a villain, a true villain, who I was sort of. We'll see if this villain returns, because I think he might can, because he's so perfectly evil that I hope he comes back. Just because I think he'd be a great continual antagonist, and he might, based on how it ended. We're introduced to this sheriff, and this dude is just an asshole. And he comes in super racist, and he basically explains to them that they're in a sundown county, which basically means if you're not white and you're here when the sun's down, we're going to kill you. Now, he could have easily just shot them right there. Could have, but he didn't. Why? Because he wanted to play with them. Turned it into a game, basically. And there's a whole sequence where they got to follow the laws. They got to follow these very strict rules, yet still get out of the county. They actually win. They get out of the county, but he's bullshits them, and he captures them anyways and takes them to the woods. Before we get into the woods sequence, what did you guys think of everything leading up?
Well, yeah, that leads back to our talk about the restaurant and the gas station and everything. The tensest moments were moments like this. It wasn't when the actual sort of Lovecraftian things happen. It was moments like that where they're dealing with the sheriff. And the lead up to that was incredibly tense. One of the tensest moments in the episode. And as far as him being a reoccurring villain, I don't know if that'd be. I'd have to disagree with you. I don't know if that'd be possible given the way things happen.
Well, I don't. We don't know how those creatures. He didn't die.
Well, that's my thing.
He turned into whatever it was.
Exactly. But the fact that he didn't get killed, he was still wearing part of the uniform, and he jumps out of the window. And I don't know, the part I was like, I don't know. I don't know if that was a setup.
Wait, did we not see him get
No.
bit? Okay, so
yes,
he did get.
He turned into the creature, and then they were trying to shoot him, but they never were able to get him, and he jumped out the window. And I think he had he had the fucking cop pants on.
He bit the face off of the other officer.
Yeah, he killed the other cop. He ripped his head off. But the evil sheriff jumped out of the window as a creature. I mean, he is a monster, but I don't know. They described him as, they're describing him as these Lovecraftian creatures, but also similar to Dracula, where light affected him. And I was wondering, could you turn back to your human form and go back? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I just thought it was interesting. We didn't see him actually die.
That's a good question. We don't find out what happens to those things during the day because they're not necessarily hurt by light. They're just kind of repulsed by it.
Yes.
I Googled the Sundown counties and stuff while they were talking about it. And they said that because, your town isn't necessarily going to admit to be like, yeah, we used to do this, 50 years ago. We used to get killed. But what they did was they started looking at like census information. And if there was a drastic decline in the African American population, or if, some just went missing, that they are presumed that that's what they were during those times. And I was like, damn, they did some research and were like, well, these counties were like this because of the census dropping. And it's crazy that during that time frame they just didn't give a shit. They were just like, yeah, well, we don't like them. Damn. But you were talking about the vampiric creature with multiple eyeballs. We don't know what they turn into during the day. And at the end of it, when they were setting the car off, they had the lights everywhere and the flares. They ended up, you could hear like a whistle or something.
Something called them off.
I was curious about that, and I wasn't sure whether that was a soundtrack or whether that whistle was part of that scene, them being called off.
I am curious though, because of their proximity to that mansion where you met the white-haired dude. If those creatures weren't under the control of maybe the lady in the red hat or that guy, and they were actually using the creatures to protect Atticus and Dipper and Uncle Grunkle Stan. Like, I don't know. I think that to me is what
Okay, go ahead.
that was the vibe I got, was that they were trying to protect them because they never outright just jumped and tried to.
That's a good point. They
possible.
may have been under the control of someone at the mansion or the asylum or whatever it is. We're not sure because we just got there, or maybe y'all know. Maybe you looked ahead a little bit.
I haven't, but I was going to say something else, but I didn't want to alienate any of the other listeners. I'll tell you guys later.
You already know some stuff.
Maybe.
Okay.
Did you stay up and read the book that it was based on, or?
No, I may have looked something up.
Okay. The book written by Matt Ruff, by the way, which is based off of. So yeah, that cabin straight up the Evil Dead cabin.
That was awesome.
Yeah, deer head on the wall and everything. I thought that was really cool. Very cool blood and gore. The racist sheriff cops running and getting slaughtered. The beautifully lit. I love like you said, the scene with the flares. I thought that was a really cool visual. And
how many fucking flares do you think?
You ain't kidding. Now that's a
Yeah.
good question. Yeah.
Well, I guess they've made this trip before, and they did have that on their checklist on the scene before they head out. Made sure they had flares.
32
so
flares.
They just packed like 4 flares each time we went on a trip.
I imagine they have a crate full of flares for some reason.
The
in case he needs to Hansel and Gretel it and find his way home or something.
When they get to this large mansion or whatever you want to call it, castle, mansion, whatever, they're greeted by Pale White guy, and he's like, welcome home. And then it cuts. And now we did get the preview for next week, and we basically see that there's some weird cultish shit going on in this place, and somehow the Freemans are connected to it. We don't know the details yet. We'll learn it as I'm sure the season goes on. But as a whole, as a 1 hour and 10-minute piece of entertainment, how would you guys summarize your thoughts?
Well, they got me hooked. I mean, I'm definitely curious about what happens next, and after that trailer, you kind of have to tune in because that trailer implies a lot. I don't know if you want to talk about that on this episode or not, but
we can.
Well, I'm just saying that, okay, well, since we're talking about it, that implies that potentially there's some time travel, that there's magic, there's this whole cult that you mentioned earlier.
It's the full checklist of every type of pulpy novel that exists. You're right. It seems to cover all the bases. And I'm going to go into slight spoiler territory. So if you're listening and you don't want to, Spencer, go ahead. I'm sorry. Tell us your feelings and then I'll go into that.
Here's what I think. I talked to you about this, through text message. I think that.
I hope not. I know what you're talking about.
But I think that perhaps, and I don't know. I mean, they may keep this more of a, we don't know type of situation, but that maybe Atticus, because you start the episode with him seeing all this crazy shit and, waking up on the back of the bus and they never addressed who that lady was, but it's just, his friend for the journey. But he's so involved in these books that he just gets consumed by them, sees himself in them. Anytime he dreams or closes his eyes, I'm not 100% sure, knowing that he went to war, when he came back, that he's not, got severe PTSD or something. And this isn't all him sitting in like an asylum, envisioning all this shit. But that
that's
would
a good point, because I mean,
but
it's
to
a
me,
it's
it would tie back into Cthulhu, which is, the chaos god,
yeah.
and it would,
Or Arkham. Yeah.
so both of those things to me would tie into Lovecraft very well.
Absolutely, because that's often Lovecraftian stories. Well, I mean, it's not really a Lovecraftian story if you don't talk about the subject of sanity and
Yeah.
perception. And as far as we know, we haven't seen anything related to that in this episode. The next episode might prove me wrong. You might start to question the nature of some of the things that happened in this episode during the next one. But that's a good point. Maybe there is no time travel. Maybe it's just him, like you said, being absorbed in these books. Maybe not 100% being sane himself after coming back from war. Maybe he's talking to nobody on the phone. Maybe even
He's
even
pulling
though
a Rick.
yeah, essentially,
Oh.
and may in fact, because you said the actor is cast and will show up. Maybe that's a hallucination or a memory. Even there's no telling.
Not impossible. It would depend on how it's handled to whether or not I would hate it or not. But yeah, no, it's like you said, sanity is definitely a theme of Lovecraft, and it is called Lovecraft Country, so it's not impossible. But going into the spoiler thing, and this isn't major spoilers, but if you don't want any kind of spoilers, I guess you could tune out now. So the first 5 episodes have already gone out to certain people, and which annoys me a little bit, but the fact that they dropped 5 episodes, because you have a lot of people out there now who can, drop their reviews immediately, are already putting information out about the show. And this show's 10 weeks, and for the next 5 weeks we're already going to be getting dumps of lots of information. So I know some of it. I do know that the first 2 episodes are very much almost like one long episode. It's like, one continuous story. But then after that, episodes 3, 4, and 5 are very standalone in the way that the story is written. So I do know that. It's not a major spoiler, but as far as the way the story is told, I guess it's a spoiler.
Well, I think that because of the content, Perry Mason has a following from, and we talked about it. It's a lot of the people who watched Perry Mason watched it either on like Nick at Night, or it was that generation watched it. So there was already some buzz about that, but there is not a whole lot of buzz about this. There's not a big lead up or a prequel or a remake or anything. However, as soon as you announced, to me, I was excited as soon as they said Jordan Peele was on it. Like, I like J.J. Abrams, so I was giving you shit earlier about it, but like, I do like J.J., but I really like Jordan Peele. So as soon as I heard he was doing this or attached to it, that's when I got excited. So I didn't know that they needed to, give these people 5 weeks worth of information to get a buzz going about it, to get people to watch. I don't know that necessarily was needed to get people to watch this, but I guess they felt it was.
I agree. It seems a bit excessive to have already sent out the first 5 episodes to reviewers.
Especially since we're not, if they had given us the first 2 or 3 episodes, the first night, like, a 2-hour premiere or something, it wouldn't be as crazy to me. But the fact that, no, it's going to be 1 hour a week. And so therefore there are some people, that are 5 weeks ahead and are already putting up content, putting up, reviews and, discussions about those 5 episodes. But I mean, I get, from a marketing point of view, I guess I sort of get it. But from someone who enjoys entertainment and doesn't want to be spoiled, it's a little annoying.
Well, it's even more annoying because we plug a lot of HBO shit. Why the hell didn't they send it to us?
maybe season 2, Lovecraft Country season 2, they'll send us early.
Come on, guys, help us out.
So let me see. Was there any other major? So anything else you guys want to just? Oh, well, I got one. I didn't bring it up because I don't know the character's name and I didn't take the time to look it up. But I'm interested in the niece. In Atticus's niece, she's an artist. She draws this comic book. She does artwork and the maps and different things. And she has several little scenes, and it feels like she's going to be important in some way, but without declaring her, the lead. But I don't know. I really think she's going to be an important character. What did y'all think about her?
I think so, because like you said, there's all these little breadcrumbs that imply that she plays a pretty big part in the uncle's business, and if they're moving into that mansion or whatever, then I'd assume, especially given what we got from the trailer, that his family's going to move in there, and likely the sister, whose name I can't remember, the singer from earlier,
Ruby,
yes, so I imagine their family and Ruby will move in, and they'll be consistent parts of the show.
The kid's name was Diana.
Diana, okay. I don't even remember hearing the name.
I don't recall it either, but on HBO, oftentimes you'll get a louder scene and then they'll just whisper something out.
I'm telling you, it doesn't matter, because if you watch it with subtitles on, it tells you each character. It tells you the name, and then it gives the parentheses, and then it tells you, or the colon, and then it tells you who it is.
That's something I love about Amazon Prime. I don't mean to toot their horn, but when you pause whatever movie, it gives you all the actors in that scene.
See, now you're tooting Amazon Prime's horn. HBO's not going to give you 5 episodes of shit.
Hey, mate. It's like, kiss my ass, HBO. HBO, like, you need to step up your game. HBO Max.
I would say yes, but I fucking hate the way Amazon Prime is laid out.
Same here.
I love the way HBO is so integrated. It's easy to, manipulate. It's easy to, go through. Yes, I wish they would do the IMDb thing, but I'm pretty sure Amazon has some kind of deal with IMDb.
It's cool. I still think Netflix is the best layout,
though. I thought they owned it. I was pretty sure they owned it.
Oh, they might.
That would indicate why I keep getting all this weird shit pop up on Amazon Prime for me. I'm always on IMDb.
I like the Netflix layout the best. Hulu is the one that annoys me.
Hulu's the worst.
Hulu is shit as far as the layout. I mean, they got some decent content, but God, I hate that layout.
They just redid it. It's set up almost like Amazon Prime now.
Oh, okay.
Not that I would know that or have been on there recently or anything. I'm just saying that.
Any other thoughts on Lovecraft Country? Either?
No.
Nope.
I'm looking forward to the next several weeks so I can get caught up with all the assholes that already saw the next 4 episodes.
Yeah, I'm really curious where that next episode goes, and since there is apparently a significant difference in what it's going to be about after episode 2, I'm curious where it goes from there with the one-offs, and whether those are even going to take place at the mansion, or are they going to be traveling throughout the country on the next few episodes, episode 3 through 5.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited. I enjoyed the episode. I think they did a great job, and 9 more weeks. So thank you for listening. Like I said, we got a lot of content on the channel right now. If you haven't watched Perry Mason and you have access to HBO, do yourself a favor and go watch it. Go watch the show. Check out our reviews as you're watching it. And I think it's a really strong season of television. Kurt Russell-thon is running. The Boys reviews will hit on the Fridays that they air, and like I said, we got a lot of content coming in October, November, and December, and September, of course. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.